Gold Rush, the story of an American dream's triumph and collapse. In 1848, gold was unexpectedly discovered in California, right in a riverbed, and this news shook all of America. Hundreds of thousands of people, farmers, craftsmen, former soldiers, the unemployed, abandoned their homes, fields, and families and rushed west in search of wealth. The gold rush began, a mass obsession that changed not only California, but the entire country. During this time, some people became fabulously rich, while others lost literally everything. Today, we'll tell you about how the lucky ones got rich by finding gold and what difficulties and trials they had to go through for the sake of their dream. The gold rush was possibly the first mass venture fever in U.S. history, where thousands of people invested all their savings, time, and health in pursuit of the dream of quick enrichment. By 1852, more than 250,000 people had relocated to California from other states. During the 4 years of the gold rush, gold worth about $400 million was extracted, equivalent to approximately $14 billion in today's money. Gold miners extracted more than 370 tons of gold, more than had been mined worldwide in the preceding 350 years. On some days, up to 50 pounds of gold were found in California's mines, more than was mined in an entire year in many other regions of the world. This changed the map of the country. It accelerated the construction of railroads. It led to the growth of cities. It shaped the economy of the West. It all began in January 1848. Carpenter James Wilson Marshall, while working at John Sutter's sawmill, saw shiny particles in the water. He showed them to Sutter, and they tried to keep it a secret, but rumors spread, first throughout the area, then across the country, and then beyond its borders. And on December 5, 1848, the U.S. President James Polk himself announced the discovery of rich deposits in California in his address to Congress. Within a few weeks, newspapers from New York to Boston were filled with headlines about immense riches on the West Coast. Interestingly, the United States had purchased California from Mexico just a few days before the discovery of gold, paying $15 million under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Mexicans later regretted this deal many times. For the United States, it turned out to be the most successful deal in the country's history. When news of the gold spread throughout America, tens of thousands of people became infected with the idea of quick and easy enrichment. At that time, most of the U.S. population lived on the East Coast, and the journey to California was quite a challenge. There were 3 ways to get there from the East Coast. The first was by sea, around South America. This was 5 to 8 months of travel. Long and dangerous, but without transfers. The second was through Panama. Sail to the Isthmus, cross the jungle, and continue the journey by sea. It took 1 to 3 months. Faster, but there was a risk of contracting tropical diseases. And the third was by land across the entire country by wagon, through mountains, deserts, and rivers. The journey took 4 to 6 months. Already on the way, many people died for various reasons. For example, about 5,000 people died on the route through Panama alone. But the dream was stronger than fear. People did everything to find gold and start a new life. Many set out not only for gold but also with business plans. Some brought goods to sell. Others dreamed of opening shops, and still others of organizing transport companies. The gold rush created an entire ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Ships that delivered adventure seekers were often abandoned in San Francisco Bay. Crews deserted in search of gold. By 1850, more than 500 abandoned vessels had accumulated in the bay. Many of them were eventually converted into hotels, shops, prisons, and even brothels. When prospectors reached California, they were met with chaos. Cities like San Francisco and Sacramento were exploding with the influx of people. San Francisco grew from 1,000 residents to more than 25,000 by the end of 1849. There was a shortage of food, housing, and roads. Many arrived with no idea how to search for gold, but almost everyone believed they could get rich quickly. Enterprising miners quickly realized that in competitive conditions, a strategy was needed. Some united in teams to work more efficiently, others invested in better equipment, and others searched for unexplored territories. A real business race began, where not only the lucky ones won, but also the clever ones. Initially, gold-bearing plots were divided according to unwritten rules. However much you can process in a day is yours. Later, laws appeared when California became a state in 1850. The mining economy resembled today's startup market. High risks, oversaturation with competitors, instability, and a huge difference between winners and losers. Out of 10 ventures, only one survived, and that one could bring a fortune. At first, gold was actually found right in riverbeds, washing sand using pans. This was called the placer method. A simple wooden pan cost $8 in 1848, and already $50 by mid-1849. But soon, the easy gold ran out. They had to dig deeper, use heavier tools, sluices, rockers, and later even explosives. By 1852, hydraulic mining appeared. Powerful jets of water under pressure washed away entire hills, which led to an environmental catastrophe. They worked from morning till night. People stood waist-deep in icy water with aching backs and broken hands. On average, a miner washed gold worth $16 a day, but many didn't even find $1. They lived in tents, clay huts, or right under the open sky. Food was meager: beans, pork, corn porridge. Diseases, fights, robberies, lack of law, all this was commonplace. There was almost no police, and conflicts were resolved with fists or pistols. Self-justice arose, vigilante committees, which judged and executed suspects without due process. According to some estimates, more than 4,200 murders occurred during the first 5 years of the gold rush. For comparison, in New York, during the same period, only 120 murders were registered. Prices for food and goods rose tenfold. In 1849, a pound of coffee cost $5, with an average wage in the East of $1 per day. Eggs were sold for $1 each, boots for $100, and a simple frying pan could cost $15. One enterprising merchant named James Sam Brennan sold simple sandwiches for specks of gold, collecting up to $5,000 a day from his improvised food stand. Many worked for months without results. Some lost everything: health, money, hope. There were suicides. There were those who took to drinking. Mining camps were dotted with saloons. By 1850, there were more than 500 drinking establishments in San Francisco, with a population of about 25,000. Some fled back home, hiding their defeat. According to statistics, about 80% of gold seekers either found nothing or spent more on living than they earned. The gold rush turned into a test of endurance and psychological strength. Land speculation reached incredible levels. Plots that sold for $16 before the rush, a year later cost $45,000. Even tiny pieces of land in downtown San Francisco sold for tens of thousands of dollars. One enterprising speculator, Henry Mellis, bought most of the Mission District for $100 and sold it a few years later for $1.5 million. But despite all the difficulties and failures, there were those who became fabulously rich. Some really did find rich deposits. Famous is the example of Lorenzo Sawyer, who in a couple of years amassed a fortune of $20,000, equivalent to about $700,000 today. Stevenson Barnett became the owner of several mines and opened a bank, getting rich from mining and buying gold from others. Henry Wells found a nugget weighing 54 pounds, worth more than $10,000, and founded a thriving transport company. By the way, we'd like to mention that the largest gold nugget in history was found not in California, but in Australia. It weighed 2,284 ounces, which is more than 173 pounds. It was discovered by a group of Australian miners in 1869. The nugget was sold for $50,000, but its historical and collectible value was much higher. At today's gold price, it would be worth more than $3 million. This piece of gold even had a name: Welcome Stranger. But while the majority blindly rushed for the first shiny particles, strategic entrepreneurs studied the landscape, identified promising territories, and built mining systems. These people created not temporary mining teams, but real enterprises with investments, personnel, and long-term planning. For example, one group of 5 men in 1850 stumbled upon a rich vein at the Feather River. In one day, they mined gold worth $75,000. This area was named Rich Bar and attracted thousands of new miners. George McKnight discovered a deposit in the Sierra Nevada mountains. His find brought $80 million, a fantastic sum even by modern standards. However, even the rich faced difficulties. John Sutter, on whose land the first gold was found, soon lost everything. His farms were ruined by crowds of prospectors. He sued, tried to preserve his property, but ultimately died in poverty in 1880 in Washington, never having received compensation from the government. Even James Marshall, the discoverer of gold, could not get rich and died poor, working as a carpenter until the end of his life. This once again proved gold in California did not guarantee happiness. For Native Americans, the gold rush turned into a catastrophe. Their population in California decreased from 150,000 to less than 30,000 by 1870. California Governor Peter Burnett even declared a war of extermination against Indian tribes in 1851. Many famous personalities also visited the mines: young Ulysses Grant, future U.S. President, writer Mark Twain, philosopher John Muir. For each of them, the gold rush became a turning point in life. Twain wrote his first bestseller, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, based on stories he heard in miners' camps. In reality, the main profit was made not by those who dug for gold, but by those who sold goods and services. Sam Brennan, a tool seller, opened stores near the mines. He was the first to spread rumors about gold, to increase his sales. He ran through the streets of San Francisco with a bottle of gold dust, shouting about gold. At the same time, he prudently bought up all the shovels and pans in the area in advance. He became California's first millionaire, earning more than $2 million, about $65 million at today's rate. Levi Strauss bought fabric and sewed pants for miners from durable canvas used to cover wagons. These pants turned out to be so durable that they quickly became popular. In 1873, he patented his invention, jeans with copper rivets, and created the Levi Strauss & Company empire, becoming a multimillionaire. Now the whole world wears jeans that were invented thanks to the gold rush. The story of Levi Strauss is a classic example of understanding the true needs of the market. He saw not gold, but the need for durable work clothes, and this business turned out to be much more stable and long-lasting than the mining itself. This principle works today. Look not for what everyone is looking for, but for what everyone who is looking needs. Philip Armour made a fortune selling meat to hungry miners. Later, he founded the meat processing giant Armour & Company. Collis Huntington, starting with a small tool store, became one of the big four railroad magnates who built the first transcontinental railroad. James Lick came to San Francisco as a carpenter. He invested in real estate when plots cost pennies. By the time of his death in 1876, he was the richest man in California, with a fortune of $3 million of that time. The gold rush also led to the creation of the first express mail system in the United States. Alexander Todd founded a company that delivered mail between remote camps and San Francisco. A letter cost $1 for delivery. An astronomical sum at the time, but miners paid to stay in touch with their families. Henry Wells and William Fargo created the Wells Fargo Company, which also delivered mail, gold, and other valuables. All of them earned steadily and with less risk than the miners themselves. Around the miners, a whole infrastructure of services emerged, from mail delivery and cargo transportation to banking services for storing gold. Thus, a multi-level economy of the region was formed, where each subsequent business decision was based on the previous one. But most gold seekers left empty-handed. According to historians, about 95% of all extracted gold went to 5% of miners. But even having suffered defeat, they were a part of a grandiose historical process. California changed forever. From a remote province, it turned into one of the most populous and rich states in the country. By the end of the 1850s, more than 380,000 people lived in California, compared to 15,000 before the start of the gold rush. The most valuable legacy of the gold rush was the spirit of California itself. The bravest and most enterprising from around the world flocked here, ready to risk everything for a chance. This character has been preserved to this day. It was in California that Silicon Valley appeared, the center of global technologies. From the first microchips to internet giants, the region still attracts innovators. As 170 years ago, the spirit of pioneers lives here, only now, instead of gold, data and algorithms. The entrepreneurial DNA of gold seekers still defines the face of California, a symbol of innovation and the future. The main lesson of the gold rush for modern entrepreneurs sounds like this. In any mass craze, look not for what brings quick profit, but for what creates long-term value. It's not always the first one who wins. Sometimes the smarter one wins. and sometimes the one who simply doesn't give up. Real wealth is often found not where most people look for it, but in the ability to see opportunities where others see only obstacles. California has overcome its golden past by creating new types of gold, from Hollywood films to Silicon Valley technologies. But it all began with those particles that James Marshall saw in cold water on a January morning in 1848. Friends, also watch our other videos about entrepreneurs and companies.